Welcome back, my friends, to another episode of TFT Hyperroll. These are games from the PBE, but from what I've seen, it's pretty much going to be the same. So now that it's out on the live server, I want to put these games up in hopes that it can help you get to Hyper really quick. This first build that we're going to go over is really, well, besides Animaniacs, which is from last season, so let's call it the best new build that I found while going through the PBE this last week. And we start this one off with a hero augment, which when you get him at the first level, you're not quite sure which way you want to go. Now, this was my first time seeing this particular Lucian augment. Gain a Lucian the first time your strongest Lucian casts ability, each combat, and every 2 times afterwards you gain 2 gold. So if you cast it 3 times, you're going to be gaining 6 gold per round, which is pretty good, especially in hyperroll where you're going to be doing a lot of rolling. It could work well for econ in the regulars. I don't know what the gold amount is, but I decide to go with that, which means I'm definitely heading into an Infiniteam build. And unfortunately, because I took so long hemming and hawing over what to take in that first hero augment, I didn't get enough chance to roll through and see if I could 2-star my Lucian and my Pantheon and maybe pick up a third Infiniteam. Did not have a winning formula. Now, I'm going to be skipping over all carousels in this mode. It's hyperroll. I'm not a fan of carousels, but I am able to get my third Infiniteam member for the next fight. And while usually Infiniteam gives you frontline or backline directly, this one didn't. Gave me the second row, which was a little more awkward and made it more difficult to really get into position, so they're able to get ahead of me. And as I mentioned in my big video where I went over a ton of builds, my biggest problem with Infiniteam is the front line. So anytime I get a chance to bring in a Rammus or another strong tank up front, I feel it really helps. The backlines for Infiniteam are very strong and get infinitely stronger as the game goes on, as you will see here. It's time for an item choice, and since our hero augment has to do with Lucian casting more often, we can grab the tier and then ultimately make a blue buff on Lucian so he's casting more often, getting us more gold, allowing us more rolls. Our main goal right now is to win if possible, but mainly get all of the casts out of Lucian that we can. We want the gold. We're going to want to be able to roll down later and get all the champions that we need to complete this build. It's time for our second augment, and these are some meh augments, but the egg did just open, so we'll have a little extra to go with, but I'm not going to roll a low tier augment. I'll wait and see what comes next and just take the best one at this time, which for me is going to be healing. We can get the Sunfire Cape onto Rammus to provide some anti-heal, and the Hand of Justice we just got out of the egg onto Lucian. And we're starting to pick up our key units for this, which are the other Quickdraw champions, which is Kaisa, Ezreal. We're going to be looking for a Miss Fortune as we go, but it's the infinite Quickdraw build that is really, really strong, and you'll see why as we go. As far as order to put people out, I'm going to go with Quickdraws before Infiniteam unless I have 5 Infiniteam, because at 5 Infiniteam I'm going to get a second portal. Otherwise, I'd rather get the boost that comes with more Quickdraws on the board than with just an additional Infiniteam. You can see it matters because they're getting that additional attack that does additional damage. And let's just go over how Quickdraw works really quick. For every 2 damaging abilities, they do an additional shot that does a percentage of their damage up to 150% if you have all 4 on the board, and there are 4, so you don't need an emblem in order to get to the full amount of Quickdraws. You have them in the game, and they're pretty strong units, especially since one of them is Miss Fortune, who's also an ace. Now that we have Miss Fortune, we're thinking Miss Fortune items, so the Needlessly Large Rod is really important. It'll work well with that bow in order to get us a Rage Blade. Rolled the first set and then went for healing. I like healing augments in this build. You're going to be doing a lot of damage, and that will come back to help you. Here, I tried to get a Spear of Sojin just on luck. Didn't work, but the Bramble Vest worked really well on Rammus because his damage is based on his armor. Having a strong Rammus is going to be key here because, again, your backline's really squishy with this build. So if something can get there, it can do a lot of damage. But if your tank can hold up for a while, and you can see Rammus can, your backline will do an immense amount of damage. And again, we're just sort of in rinse and repeat, keeping our front line strong. We want Misfortune to be able to ult, because once she does, she will pretty much wipe a team. It's a lot the same as 8.0 in that case. We have some item choices with the Anvil. I decide to go with the Visage because I want to, again, keep my front line strong. It is the weakest part of this build, especially if you don't get your portals up front. I take the Hextech Gunblade here as just an additional item for Misfortune. She's doing so much damage, why not have her give back to the rest of the team? Now, I could have gone up to the 5 Infiniteam at this point because I have Twisted Fate on the bench, but my quick draws are doing so well, and with Lucian casting so often, it's just working too well to mess with it right now. If we were losing, it might be a different story. And just a word about mech since we're facing one here. I have not seen it work really well. I haven't been able to get a winning game out of it, but I have seen some succeed with Garen as the super mech, but you need just the right items, just the right combination, or else everything just seems to get wiped. And with that victory, we are now into the top 4, and we get the Ezreal we really need. Now, why choose the Ezreal over the Twisted Fate? They'll both give us the 5 Infiniteams. Twisted Fate is in general a 2-star, a stronger unit, but Ezreal has some huge advantages you'll see in a moment. So let's just go over how the 5-cost Ezreal really works. He's going to create a bunch of himself all over the place. It is mostly AD based, a little bit of magic, but mostly AD. So I decide to go with the Redemption to simply shore up the front line a little bit more. Then go with the Rage Blade here to speed up Ezreal's attack so he's casting more often. Now you'll get to see the Ezreal attack here, although not in its full glory because it's just a 1-star at this point. But the first thing that happens when you get Parallel is regular Ezreal will now use his R, and then the second Ezreal will just cover the board in that way. He does that anyway, but a little extra here. Now this does show the weakness of this build. Note, once they can get through the front line, your back line just collapses. So a team with a really strong front line like this has a good chance against us. Now, since I had 2 lives left, I wanted to try putting in Twisted Fate instead of the additional Pantheon in the front row and see if we could just overwhelm them with power. I did pick up the 2-star Ezreal, but not in time to get him in this particular round. So I'm strong, but not quite strong enough, especially since the 2 teams we're facing have really, really good front lines. And now that we have the 2-star Ezreal incoming, it's going to be time for a major change. 2-star Ezreal is an extremely strong unit. We can take out Twisted Fate and go back to the front line we had before, but put Ezreal on the portal. Now we are going to get 2 Ezreals, which means we're going to get double the amount of Ezreal ult crisscrossing the board, which along with Misfortune makes this build really hard to beat unless you can take them down before they get rolling. I did manage to get up to the 3-star Lucian, so I have that going in my favor, but notice once Ezreal starts casting, it's just complete chaos. Misfortune wipes out about half their team, leaves them without much left. Then the second set of casts gives them no chance, and it's really GG to everyone. It's a great build. It really is. Beware of the front line. That's the weak point. Hope you found this video helpful, and as always, have an absolutely awesome day.